Hello everyone, it's the Good Side Leader here, and today I'm going to be doing my Doctor Who DVD collection for 2020. Now my collection has grown substantially since I last did a video. So, starting off we have An Unearthly Child, the first ever Doctor Who episode to air on TV. The first part is magnificent. It is really well put together. Her two school teachers follow her into a junkyard, later to discover that she has a centuries-old grandfather who can pilot a spaceship. Now, the other parts are not so great, and I'm not really a fan of the cavemen. I think they are a bit silly, and half of the time you can't really understand them, and it does get a bit boring. The pace is a bit of a problem for me, but the first part really makes it special, and I still like the story, not as a whole, but the first part is really the best thing for me. Next we have the Daleks. Some people think this is quite overrated, and yeah, it does drag a bit, but I actually think it's quite underrated. I really love the introduction, especially the first part when you see Barbara backing up to a wall, and then that's the first appearance of the Daleks ever. You know, the Dead Planet design look fantastic. They are really creepy 60s sort of aliens. Yeah, like, just looking back on them, they look really retro. As a whole, it doesn't bore me. I think it is absolutely fantastic, and it should deserve a lot more praise. Next, we have The Edge of Destruction, which is quite a boring two-parter. You know, nothing too special, and they kept the budget quite low, obviously for Marco Polo, I believe. So, you know, this is sort of like one of those filler stories to fill in the gaps, and, you know, it's not great. Don't check it out. We have the Aztecs Special Edition, which is fantastic. Probably my favourite William Hartnell story, although I do like the 10th Planet. Yeah, those funny scenes where the Doctor is getting engaged in the garden, that's really funny. Yeah, this guy's really creepy, and I love how Barbara becomes, like, I think it's the Queen. It has some really great special features. You know, you've got, I think it's Galaxy 4, and you've got this documentary on Doctor Who figures. Yeah, amazing special features. And, you know, you've got a few archives for some of the old episodes recovered again. So that's a fantastic story. Next, we have the Dalek Invasion of Earth. Now, I'm sorry, this is not a very popular opinion, but yeah, I get really bored of this one. I almost fell asleep whilst watching a second part. I think it drags a lot. I think the Dalek introduction is a lot stronger, in my opinion, than this one. I mean, not to say it's bad or anything, but it just bores me as a whole. I don't really enjoy it. Next, we have the War Machines, which is a very nice gem of the William Hartnell era. I think some people do think these monsters are a bit silly. I can't remember the name of them, but yeah, I do agree that they are a rip-off of the Daleks, as you can see. They look a bit like the Crotons, I'm not going to lie. They just look really big and chunky. I don't like the design. But, you know, you've got I think it's called the BT Tower, which is in London right now, which is a really good appearance of that. Yeah, it's fantastic. The 10th Planet, which is such a great exit in my opinion. Some of the parts haven't been recovered, but that's okay. You know, the animation isn't the greatest as what we get in the Macra Terror and stuff, but it's still enjoyable nonetheless. And, you know, you've got that great scene when William Hartnell says, "Love, pride, hate, fear. Have you no emotions, sir?" The Cybermen are really creepy, just like the Daleks. I think they nail that 60s retro design. It's a really good leaving story for him. And then we go on to the Patrick Troughton era. We've got Tomb of the Cybermen Special Edition. This has got to be my favourite Cyberman story, if I had to pick one, out of the classic era, because it's just so special. You've got the Tomb Cybermen with the greatest voice, and you've got the Tombs themselves. I can't remember this one because I haven't watched it in a long time. I really should rewatch this because it's fantastic. I'd recommend it to anyone. Really good. Next, we have The Web of Fear, which is amazing. It's yet another great Patrick Troughton story. The Yeti is just, it's the best thing ever. And I love how they couldn't film in London Underground, so they actually had to make a set. Really good story, and it's very dark. We got The Mind Robber next, which is quite a quirky, sort of mysterious story. Not really something you get in Doctor Who, which is what I love about it. It really is diverse to all these kind of stories. It really does make a change. And what's really funny is that the guy who plays Jamie, I think it's, yeah, Fraser Hines, he was ill when they were filming this, so they really, really covered it up well. They got another actor to play him, and in the story they had to put the jigsaws back together to make Jamie's face. That's really good. These men are really creepy. It's got a really good concept to it, and it's just, you know, classic Doctor Who. Next, we have The Invasion, which is really good. A really good story. Not as strong as some of these ones, but it's a really good one, and I believe it's special edition, but I'm just got a little sticker there. It takes a bit of time for the Cybermen to turn up on this one, and they literally turn up parts 5, because there's like 8 parts, so they don't appear a lot in the story, but the introduction to these invasion Cybermen are amazing. You know, you've got them marching down St. Paul's Cathedral. It's just fantastic. And then finally, ending the Patrick Troughton era, we have the War Games, Troughton's swan song. And I've got to say, it's probably my favourite Patrick Troughton story, if one of them. Now, 10 parts, you might be thinking, what? What were they thinking? But, you know, it's really good. There's a lot going on in those 10 parts. You've got the horse and the chariots. You've got the Time Lord, mysterious smoke, where it leads them to another dimension. The leaving story for Zoe and Jamie, which is just, oh, it's lovely. It's really sad to see them go, because they're got to be my favourite trio of classic Doctor Who, because they're just really great with the Doctor. You've got Second Doctor's Regeneration, which is just amazing. Amazing story. Move on to the Jon Pertwee era now. We have Spearhead from Space Special Edition, which came in the Mannequin Mania box set with Terror of the Autons, which is a really great story. Not only is it great for the Autons, but you've got the Brigadier yet again, and that really creepy man there. And, you know, the shop window dummies, it's really creepy. I just love it, how the Doctor says, shoes, and then he just literally escapes from the hospital in his wheelchair. Really good story. And then we have Doctor Who and the Silurians, which is, you know, it's another gem of Season 7, because Season 7 as a whole has a real sheer sense of scale, and it just feels cinematic. It is one of my favourite seasons of Classic Who, because it's just has magnificent, mind-blowing stories. Back to the Silurians, it does drag a bit. I think it is a bit slow in areas, but it's really good for the Silurians. I think they are just really creepy, really good. Saw models as well, which, yeah, they aren't great, but I do believe they used them later on in Invasion of the Dinosaurs. You've got the scenes where the Doctor goes underground and the Silurians attack everyone. It's really good. And then we have the Ambassadors of Death, probably the weakest of Season 7. Not saying it's bad, because it isn't. It's a great story. It's just probably drags the most out of them all. But that's all I can really say about it that's bad, because the astronauts are so creepy, with those green faces, fight scenes in the warehouse, and the helicopters. There's a lot of action in this story. Finishing off Season 7, we've got Inferno. This is probably my favourite classic story, because of the sheer sense of scale in this one. These monsters themselves are, oh my goodness, they are magnificent, they are amazing. You've got the Brigade leader, who's the opposite to the Brigadier, and they're closer to penetrating the Earth's crust, because there's basically different dimensions in this story, and the Doctor's basically trying to convince everyone that he is actually the Doctor, and they think he's like a spy. I love it. To Terror of the Autons, some people don't like this one. I can kind of understand why, and I do agree that it isn't as strong as Spearhead, but it's sort of my guilty pleasure, because it still remains a special place in my heart. You know, I've always been really fond of this one. I don't know why. I believe I saw it in a VHS tape. The daffodils that just suffocate Jo Grant. It's just really funny. And those mannequins, those things there, they're quite bizarre, actually. And you've got the telecast, and then the Master, who's really good. It's the introduction to him in this story, and Jo Grant as well. Yeah, what more could you ask for? We have the Mind of Evil, which is yet another brilliant story. The Master, you know, great as always. We have the Keller Machine, which is the worst thing ever. You know, it turns your real nightmares into reality. And we have the bomb as well that the the Master designates at the end of the story. And the colour seems a bit weird on the story because I do believe one of the tapes was smashed, it was destroyed, so the only surviving copy was black and white and they had to recolour it. Really good. Next, we have Claws of Axos, which is, it's an okay story. You know, you've got the Master, which is good, and you've got the Axon creatures themselves, the gold sort of men, and then the spaghetti monsters, which I like to call them, which are basically the Chronoids painted in orange. So, yeah, not a lot about the story. I wouldn't say it's, like, amazing, the best ever thing. I mean, you can check it out if you want. It's okay. Finishing off Season 8, we've got Demons, which is really good. Yeah, we got the Azal, who is amazing villain. I really think he should return again. I know it'd be sort of hard to recreate that costume because it is quite a big one. I think he's like 9 feet tall. Yeah, he is amazing. We got the Master, who sort of pretends to be a vicar, who's really funny, and then the Doctor as well. And there's sort of a bit of voodoo and yeah, a bit of a ceremony sort of type thing in this story with the black magic theme. It's amazing. One fact about this story that you should know: it was filmed in a little village called Aldbourne, and I actually visited that a few months ago. Yeah, it's quite local to me, so that's really good. Yeah. Being local to a Doctor Who location is, wow, it's mind-blowing. I only recently discovered that, actually. I'm really excited. Yeah, it's a great story. I recommend it to anyone. We've got Day of the Daleks, which is a great Dalek story. You know, we haven't seen them since the, I think it's the Patrick Troughton era, and it's great returning for them. You've got the Ogrons, which are just, they're really dumb. They're just stupid. Yeah. That's all I can say. Oh, also, they have refined some of the effects on this and put better Dalek voices. So I do believe the old Dalek voices on this story were really crap. So they've enhanced them with the Nicholas Briggs and added more special effects. As you can see, the gun ray and stuff. So that's really good. The Sea Devils. Wow. Oh my goodness. I love this story. Yeah, the Sea Devils are an amazing creature. I think some people did speculate they were going to return in Series 12, but actually that was wrong. That was the Silurians. Yeah, John Pertwee is fantastic. I love his costume. And then we got the Master, who's imprisoned in that castle, and the Sea Devils just arising from the sea is amazing. And that castle itself is a great setting. Sea theme in this story. It's a really good one. Three Doctors, which is a really good 10th anniversary edition of Doctor Who. Yeah, really good story. I love multi-Doctor stories, I don't know why, but they just seem really great ideas and a lot of effort always put into them. Yeah, John Pertwee is really good. I love the bonds between these Doctors. Unfortunately, William Hartnell only has a tiny appearance because obviously he wasn't very well when they were filming this. Yeah, it's a really good story. If I had to hold the camera with my hand now, because the DVDs were getting too close to the camera and you couldn't really see them, could you? So, yeah, sorry about if it's not very steady. I'm sorry if it's a bit shaky, but I'll try my best. So we got Carnival of Monsters, which is quite an underrated story. I really did like it, but at first I thought, yeah, I don't really want to watch it. It looks silly. And I was sort of right, because it is a bit silly and, you know, it's a bit of fun with those two people who are in silly costumes. But, you know, the Drashigs are fantastic. As much as they are a bit silly, I don't mind them. I think they are quite powerful. And I love how the Doctor and Jo are just stuck in that tiny world and the tiny machine. And you've got all the kind of settings with the boat as well and the desert. And it's a great appearance for Harry Sullivan as well. I don't think he plays Harry Sullivan, but he's the same actor. So yeah, really good story. We have the Green Death, a great leaving story for Jo Grant, who's one of the best companions. We've got the maggots. God, I love the maggot. That's all I can remember. It's a good story. We have the Time Warrior, which is fantastic. It's great. You know, you've got Sarah Jane, who is definitely one of my favourite companions, and Lynx, who's really good. I love the cliffhanger when he just licks his lips. It's just, it's hilarious. Yeah, we've got the castle. Yes, we've got Invasion of the Dinosaurs, which I don't mind. Now, the only thing that lets this story down is the dinosaur models. I know, they look stupid. They look like a child's plastic toy and stuff. Yeah, they're not very good. But the Humobile is Jon Pertwee's vehicle, which is really cool. It's just looks stunning, in my opinion. Yeah, this is a really good story. I don't mind it. I think it's still a good plot nonetheless. But for some reason, part 1 was black and white. I don't know why. Yeah, really good story. Robot now, onto the Tom Baker era, which is quite a good story. You know, Tom Baker's a bit hyper in the story. He's not really the Doctor we really know him. I think he's just a bit high on regeneration energy, if I'm honest. Yeah, the robots are very creepy in their design. And, yeah, really good. And I'd love to have a thing. The Sontaran Experiment, which is quite a mediocre story, and I think it could have done with a few more parts, because 2 parts just doesn't do it for me, and I think it could have felt a bit more cinematic if it would have had about 3 or 4 more parts, and it would feel like a complete story. And I think the Sontaran design is good, but it never beats the original. You know, Harry Sullivan is brilliant, and so is Sarah Jane, but unfortunately, I just think it should have been a bit longer. Genesis of the Daleks, which is quite an overrated story in my opinion. You know, parts 3 to 4 get boring and there's nothing really going on with the plot. But I love the Genesis Dalek design, and Davros, it's a brilliant appearance for him. And you've got that fantastic scene, I think it's part 1 or part 2's cliffhanger, when Tom Baker is zoomed into the camera and you see him being strangled by a Cardo mutant. I do think it's overrated, but please don't judge me. I still think it's a good story though. Revenge of the Cybermen, which is quite a Marmite story. You either love it or you hate it, and it has very mixed reviews. Personally, it's okay, but it's not supposed to be taken seriously. You know, the Cybermen are basically hugging the Doctor, and it's stupid, and it just makes it like a bit of fun, and I don't like that for this story. You know, it sort of works for other stories, but not for this. Terror of the Zygons, which is phenomenal. Broton himself is absolutely stunning. You know, he has great amounts of dialogue in the story, and I feel like he has a lot of potential, and the Zygons themselves are one of my favourite villains because of this story. And you've got the monster, I think it's called the Loch Ness Monster, which appears at the end, which is amazing. I love how they're just trudging through the mud in Scotland. I really like this story. It is fantastic. Planet of Evil, which is a really good story in my opinion. I think it is so underrated. Yes, some of the monsters do look a bit crap, but that is all I have against this story, because it is really strongly executed. I think Tom Baker and Sarah Jane give their thrilling performances. Pyramids of Mars, which is yet another phenomenal story from season 13. Sutekh is definitely one of my favourite classic villains. I'd love to see him return. You know, the Siren Service robots are fantastic. I love the design, and they are so unique in design. The 4 parts, it really doesn't bore me, and I think it just works great. The Android Invasion, which is quite a forgettable story. I really like it though, and I think it's yet another really underrated Tom Baker story. The androids themselves are very creepy, and I love how they sort of dress up as the astronauts, which does sort of give me flashbacks of season 7, you know, with the Ambassadors of Death. Shame that the Brigadier doesn't turn up, because UNIT are in this story, which is good, but then you can't really have the UNIT without the Brigadier, can you? Yeah, it's quite a weird story because there's something missing. Characters, good dialogue, good concept, a really good story. The Seeds of Doom, which is definitely a thrilling story to watch, which are great, you know, look a bit similar to the Axons, don't they? Pods themselves grown in Antarctica is fantastic, and you know, these sort of broccoli monsters, baloney, but that's what I love about it. It really does take Doctor Who to the limits, and such an amazing story. We have the Hand of Fear, which is Sarah Jane's last story. She served her purpose in Doctor Who, and I felt that, you know, it was sort of the right time for her to go. Yeah, great character. Really love Sarah Jane. Definitely one of my favourite companions. And the hand itself, crawling around the rooms in that sort of lab, it's fantastic. You know, it has a really good concept in this story. And, you know, it's a very enjoyable one with Unit as well. Nice little appearance. Yeah, it's fantastic. Probably Tom Baker's best, in my opinion, because you've got the Master controlling the Doctor's mind, and the Time Lord Council think that the Doctor has assassinated the Time Lord President. Master really triggers off different things in the Doctor's brain, and there's just a lot going on, and I love how it is sort of like the War Games, how in the parts there are different things going on. An epic story put in one, and I love the Time Lords returning with the Gallifreyan symbol. It is just stunning. On to the next shelf now, we have Horrorfang Rock. Yeah, I don't really like this story. I think it's very boring. It drags unbelievably. I thought this was going to be an amazing story of the lighthouse. I thought it was going to be a lot of mystery with the meteor, but unfortunately, in my eyes, it's very boring. Image of the Fendal, which is such a well-executed story, especially for season 15, or was it 16, which doesn't have very strong stories in my opinion. I think this one is a real gem of the Tom Baker era. And I love how the school is very manipulative in the story, and it controls people's minds, and the Fendaline and the Fendal, fantastic creatures. Remind me a bit of the Jurassics. The Invasion of Time, shit. City of Death, which is yet another phenomenal story for Tom Baker. You might be thinking, what is that? He looks like a tentacle creature that's just been out the bloody sea. Well, that's Scarth, who's one of the most amazing villains throughout Doctor Who, and, you know, a really great character. And Romana is fantastic. I really like her interpretation of the character. I love the difference in the location. You know, it's normally in Britain or something, usually for classic Doctor Who, but in France it really makes a change, and I think it feels a lot different, which is why I love it. The Keeper of Traken, which is a really good penultimate story for Tom Baker. Now, it's not as strong as Logopolis. Melkur are quite a good villain, but they look a bit bulky. I don't know why. I just don't really like. There's something about the Melkur that I just think looks a bit silly. Master returning at the end, which is a real plot twist, and some of the viewers probably weren't expecting that. Tom Baker is fantastic, as always. Yeah, it's quite a good story. Logopolis, which is such a magnificent episode. The Watcher, we've been wondering all this time, who is he? And we get to find out that location yet again with the telecast, which is used a lot in Classic Who, surprisingly throughout the Jon Pertwee era. And the Master, he's taken over another body, this time Lisa's dad, and Tom Baker regenerates. I felt like it could have been a bit more glorious and cinematic for his regeneration, you know, just falling off a pole. Doesn't really feel like the Doctor really saved someone's life or did something that was really amazing, like the Doctor taking in all the radiation to save Wilfred Mott, something like that, and I really do like it. Oh! Cash Revolver, which is quite a quirky story with all the different locations. You know, there's something going wrong with time in this story, and, you know, all the corridors just lead into eternity. The Visitation Special Edition, set within the fires of London, and unfortunately the Doctor sets fire to his sonic screwdriver, which is obviously what sets off the fires of London in this story, which is quite a little plot twist, which I do like. And then, unfortunately, we don't get to see the sonic screwdriver till the 7th Doctor era. So we've got the Pteroleptals, which are a great villain of Doctor Who. Earthshock, which is quite a sad leaving story for Adric, because he's blown up in the Cyberman spaceship at the end. He takes his life on board, which is what the Doctor does with his companions. Cybermen design is really good. The Five Doctors, which is the 25th anniversary of Doctor Who. It's a shame that, you know, William Hartnell died, so we had to get this replacement for this kind of guy here. And Tom Baker didn't really appear and commit to this story, which is quite sad. You know, you can't have Doctor Who without Tom Baker, can you? But yeah, it's a good story as a whole. I like the appearance of the Cybermen and the Master. Warriors of the Deep. Resurrection of the Daleks, which is a brilliant leaving story for Tegan. There's a lot of death in this story, which is surprising for Doctor Who, and another great returning for Davros. Caves of Androzani. Oh, I need to get the special edition cover. It's a phenomenal regeneration and a great story because Sarah Jack is one of the most powerful villains of Doctor Who. I think Perry and the Fifth Doctor are very underrated together, and the Fifth Doctor's regeneration has got to be one of my favourites. Attack of the Cybermen, which is quite a good story, not one of my favourites, but it is a good story nonetheless. I used to call him a cucumber. Yeah, you heard me right. A cucumber. Yeah, these people, it looks like they're wrapped in cling film, which is, it's very bizarre. But, you know, you've got the Sixth Doctor with his sonic lance. Two Doctors, which is okay. It's not the best story. It's a good multi-Doctor story, but not one of the ones I'm keen on, like the Five Doctors or the Three Doctors. They're a lot stronger than this one. Remembrance of the Daleks Special Edition, which has got to be Sylvester McCoy's best ever story, with the Daleks returning, and I think that's the Mechanoid, and Davros is fantastic, and you have the brilliant scene, which is being turned into a meme, where the Seventh Doctor says, "Unlimited rice pudding." It's a good story as a whole. I love it. The Curse of Fenric, which is very creepy, and I did put it on my list for top 5 scary Doctor Who episodes because the Haemovores are just one of the creepiest villains of Doctor Who. You know, the movement, it's really creepy, and I love how the whole depth with Maiden Point, and how you should never go there, and with the German codes that they crack, it's fantastic. I actually quite like it, you know. Doctor Who can't be Doctor Who without Britain, and I can see why it does sort of feel a bit different, you know, being filmed in America, but I don't mind that. I think the Master is okay, and Paul McGann is a really good Doctor. So that's it for my DVD collection. I hope you have enjoyed. Subscribe, and I will see you guys in another video. Goodbye for now.